Wow! Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cloud Show. We have another great episode today for you with another wonderful guest. We're going to talk about some technology. We're going to talk about some cloud stuff. But before we do that, I want to draw your attention to something that is a near and dear friend of C# Corner, which is a huge community event, Global Azure. Global Azure 2024 has been announced. It is now live on the blog with the blog post announcement for our episode, or our next event is going to be on April 18 through 20. All the facts are here on the blog, including this video by Mr. Scott Guthrie, who is one of our biggest fans. Now back to the regularly scheduled broadcast, and we're going to bring on the next guest. The next guest on the Cloud Show is one of the founders, co-founder and president of Solliance. She is doing a lot of product consulting services and those kinds of things, and she's a fellow regional director. It is no one less than Michele Bustamante. Hello, Michele.
Hello, Magnus.
It is so good to see you.
I know. I'm so excited. This is great. We finally made it happen.
Finally made it happen. We've been talking about this for a while, but now our calendars aligned and stars aligned and everything, and it was just beautiful.
It's the perfect day.
Yes, here we are. Here we are talking about cloud again. Yep. And we're going to start by talking about you. I bet like everybody knows you, know who you are, no problem.
I don't know about that.
But still, for the very few people out there, who are you, Michele?
Who am I? Wow. Well, I am a very, I guess, busy person. I always start with that. Yeah, everybody's busy, right? It's just what you do. I have a 15-year-old that keeps me busy. My husband and I and our son are, basically balancing work life as you do with teenage kids these days, which is fun. I've been in technology for, believe it or not, 30 years,
something, yeah.
And, a lot of that time I started in development, as you may remember, but I moved into architecture and leadership positions doing C-level type, building high performing teams, learning how to do cloud when it was on-prem cloud, right? When you had to bid your own machines and actually have vendor agreements. And then, obviously that transitioned nicely into our real cloud in Azure, which we love so well.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time publishing, doing public speaking. Yep. And really I did that because I wanted to learn things and learn them well, and then be able to explain them. So the side benefit was I got to meet all kinds of fun people like you all these years, right?
2 years.
Really great, right?
Oh, yeah.
So many friends in so many countries. And I think that, that evolution is kind of what built our company. So when you ask about, I guess, who am I at my core? I think, obviously family, but work is a big part of how I've grown as a person in all these years, because I think you're influenced heavily by not only what you do, but the people you meet. And we meet so many amazing, really talented, interesting people. And I just love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we've been fellow regional directors for a bit as well with Microsoft. Means we're hanging out a lot with Microsoft all the time. So Solliance has been around for quite some years now. I bet you know exactly how many. I don't know.
Well, really, officially, we started growing in the form we are now about 12, 13 years ago. But the business itself has kind of been, around for 20 years on paper. And we've actually got people we're working with that we've known for 20 years. So we've been working together and kind of growing our pack, if you will. It's kind of a company that we collect these lone wolf experts that specialize in their area of expertise. Could be security and identity, could be cybersecurity, pen testing, could be, DevOps and how to deliver with Terraform or Bicep. It could be Azure or AWS, so that we know the lead story. And there's just so many areas of tech to know. And I found that in the 2000s era, we were sort of struggling with, hey, we can't know it all anymore. It's not all built on WCF, and it's not all built on, one stack for UI. We've got 10 different web platforms and 5 different data backends. How do we bring that expertise together? So we built the business to work with our favorite colleagues that know so much about what they know and sort of mash them together into projects that, deliver real value, right, for customers.
Yeah, totally. And then that's really kind of the core, if you think about it. I mean, this little show that I have got going here is really about some of the things that you are saying, as in, there are so many things. There's no way any one person can keep track of all the things. So you have to have a network of friends, and you have to have help with whatever you do. And these little episodes that what we have here, is a way to try to get into some of that and explain it for people, because there are so many things.
Yep, I agree.
Cool. Yeah. All right. So tell me about foundational LM. What is this?
Okay. So we're in this moment right now where AI and security are the two hot topics, and it's what investors are funding. It's what businesses need help with. And that's kind of one of the areas that, as we've developed over the years, we've specialized in. And again, not alone, right? These are people, other RDs like Zoyner and Cyprian, and they specialize on the AI and ML side, and they've been doing it for more than 6 years before it was a thing.
Right.
We've got security, which needs to fold into AI, because one of the biggest concerns right now is enterprise security, data exfiltration, governance of the stack as you connect to these different LLMs and as you work with the different orchestrators. So Solliance has really been a consulting org for a really long time, and we realized we were building stuff for customers, but it's time to build something reusable, right? And as we developed IP, we started thinking about products, and this is our first foray into products. And it's really just launched actually a couple of weeks ago. So our timing of our show is interesting, right? And the goal of that is to help people build really enterprise grade customizable co-pilot. So it's an accelerator that's horizontal and gives you that security and that governance and that ability with an API first mindset to manage all of it with any orchestrator or LLM.
Wow. Okay. That is a lot there. But that sounds really exciting. And since you have been working, I guess, for so long in the space of security and as you have been describing, delivery at scale, I mean, what kind of scale are we talking about when you say delivery at scale? How large customers are you guys working with?
It varies. Obviously, there's lots of different enterprises on-prem that might have, just thousands of users or tens of thousands. But I think where our sweet spot is in terms of skill set and growing our team over time is 20 million user, systems, right? And that could be where we're helping with the identity side sometimes.
Yeah.
And that could be where it's just happens to be 20 million users, but it's in a system that has maybe a greater purpose in healthcare or finance. So it really depends on the project, but that's a large size customer that we have dealt with, which is pretty fun and interesting.
So a lot of companies are struggling with identity and access management. I mean, it's a tough area to get right, and there are so many things that go wrong when you don't have control over access management and identity management. How do you handle that for a system at very huge scale? I mean, that's a big question, I guess. But any thoughts?
Yeah, I think well, when you think about identity, now that's a kind of precise area. It's one of those examples of a discipline like AI that needs years to sort of become good at. And so with the identity side, I mean, over 12 years ago, we started, I mean, I've been doing identity for 20 years. So I've been really involved before it was OAuth 2 and OpenID. I did WS Star. That's how old I am. Yeah. Good time. 65-page specs, really fun to read. But, back in the day, again, working with others that we know really well, right? Like Brock and Dominic have Duende, which is the open source that now turned into a licensed product 3 years ago. And that's where, you can do on-prem and you can highly customize. And, we do a lot of that. but we still do work in Auth0, and we still do work with Okta. So I think the fit all depends on scale. You can scale any of those.
Yeah.
You don't have to own the scale of Auth0 and Okta because they provide the cloud for you, but then you have to deal with a different problem, which is throttling. Let's say you have 20 million users, you have all the API calls, and they throttle at 500 requests per second. And now we got to deal with, okay, so how do we build our systems to be resilient to that? So there's still a lot to think about, and there's still a lot to implement that you need expertise for. And then when you go to an identity server, you're hosting it yourself, either on-prem or cloud. So now you're in traditional, how do I scale any system I would build? Which means, do we really need Kubernetes to scale wide? Not really. But that's really great when you need lots of customizability and scale up and down to handle bursty loads where you want to control cost really tightly. Whereas if you're going to work with, say, app services, you can completely scale that, but you might have less control over the way you do it and then the optimization of how you do that. So it's a choice of management over simplicity, and you still get the end result. So I mean, when you ask about how do you scale, I guess with identity specifically, you could go to a cloud, but if you host your own in Azure anyway, then you're already scaling to those users in your system. So you're ready to scale, adding on the identity system too, if you're not interested in going to a cloud provider.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what I've been saying for, I don't know, gosh, many years now is that the biggest threat to any system that you ever build is success. Because it was not built to handle that scale, right?
That's right. Yeah.
All of a sudden you found something. It wasn't a bottleneck before, but it is now.
But what's interesting about that is that if you think about it, do you know how many people don't realize that their system doesn't scale because they've never run a load test of say 3 or 5 users? I mean, you can bring a system down. Yes. Like you can do your own mini load test and pretty quickly find that you have big problems. It's, get past that first, because if you haven't done that, you really haven't done your job. And then the next step is, how do I figure out that at 20 million users, we're going to be able to handle that load? But you're not going to do that overnight. So it's when you do migrations that you need to really handle that, because now you've already got the users, already have the load profile. I need to figure out, how do I apply that to the system I'm going to go to now that I built or migrate to?
Yeah, definitely. And is this the kind of thing that that most companies kind of don't do well? This has got to do with core architecture, right? Knowing what you build from the start, that's experience. I've built this kind of thing before. I can build it with scalability somewhat in mind, even though we're not at that level yet. But it's not also not about premature optimization, right? You can't build a massive system that's going to take 20 million users when you have 1,000 users. Right?
I love that phrase, premature optimization too. Yeah. Because it's so true. If you know, because you have experience, you're likely to develop it better from the start with less risk.
Yeah.
But if you don't, I mean, a lot of people have systems that have been standing up for years and, they're surviving. It's when they start to grow or something goes wrong that they're really in trouble, right? Mm-hmm. So premature optimization to me is when you don't really know for sure and you have this long list of things you want to pre-vet, and you're just not getting done. You're not getting your MVP out. You're not selling systems. You're not selling, product.
Because that's gonna be exactly the killer. Not not to necessarily to have enough capacity, but the loss of business. That's going to kill you at the end. I mean,
don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You got to ship.
Yeah. Speaking about Microsoft, no, sorry.
Shipping is a feature, right?
Shipping is a feature as compared to never shipping anything at all.
You know what else is pretty amazing though is, just surprising things that you run into is companies that don't update their .NET stack or their, component stack. And then suddenly years later realize there's all these, security attacks on these components they're using that they haven't updated. And, if you don't know how to keep up with that because your team's busy, then you really need those static analysis tools in the pipeline that can alert you and you act on, right? Or get Defender in the cloud if you're in Azure and start getting like things that are reported back to you about your
Yeah.
systems you've deployed, you know?
And this is I agree, a huge risk or danger, because you won't know what new attack vectors or possible flaws that will be discovered in the future that we never knew existed, and
Right.
nobody had found and started to abuse or take advantage of yet.
Yeah.
But so how do you keep a good good running engine? How do you keep things in order so that you can update, you know, continuously, even for older systems,
Right.
update the frameworks? How do you do that?
Yeah. So when we encounter a system that's way out of date, and we've had this happen before,
Sure.
and where even worse, let's say the system was developed with just over engineering or chaos
Yeah.
or, you know, muddy business logic intermingled with things. Some of those take literally quarters to
Yeah.
just understand and
That's right.
then even ship one unit of change
Mhm.
because it's that bad. So the best thing is to not get in that position, but there are going to be people that get in that position because of the legacy. So
Yeah.
once you're there, you really need a roadmap for success. Like, how do we start retiring this work? And, you know, you could do like, you know, encapsulate and erode, you know, new APIs, or you can, you know, there's different strategies that you could take for
Yeah.
that. But when you have a system already that's reasonably up to date, even a year can go by and people will come back and say, oh my goodness, we have this really old legacy, like say
Yeah.
identity server, you know, like the
Yeah.
version that's not currently supported. And they're making it work with .NET 6 right now. And now .NET 8 is going to come and they're not going to be able to make it work anymore. And they're going to be all in a flurry to like fix that.
Yeah.
And this is dangerous. So the best thing you can do is always, you know, have tools that notify you you're out of date, or
Yeah.
have somebody who's the steward of the code who's always looking at it. And best thing is to have the both, but at least the tools could help you. So I'm a big believer
Yeah.
in those static analysis tools to help with that, just to keep you honest. Uh,
Yes, I agree. I mean, having a pipeline or something that
yeah,
runs it and checks it out,
yeah,
continuously or ever
yeah,
so often at least, right? Because I don't
yeah,
think, I mean, just in general, you shouldn't be sending a human to do a machine's job, right? Because
yep,
people get busy or they quit the job or move on or whatnot.
yep.
There has to be a clear system build that actually always does that and checks to see, are we up to date or what's up?
And actually, you just mentioned another thing that's interesting, like just talking about things that go wrong. People sometimes don't know their own system because people have left and they just let this quiet thing keep running over here and
Mhm.
nobody's really on top of it. And then, I mean, we happen to get a lot of calls for that kind of stuff, especially when it comes to identity systems, just
Yeah.
because we do specialize there. But it's always amazing to me. Like if I was running that company, you know, no offense to anybody where it gets there, it's usually a budget problem. But
Yeah.
I'd be like walking on eggshells all the time, literally freaking out, like, oh my God, what could go wrong? Literally anything can go wrong. So
Anything.
so, you know, you need people that can either jump in and figure it out quickly, or
Mm.
somebody has to be the steward of the code. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a common story where that
It is. It's a
happens.
very common story, but
Yeah,
to really have all checking all those boxes, to have a build system, to have testing environments, to have automated deployments of things,
right.
all of those things do help, because if you have something that is running, it's going to continue running and until it starts, alerting you that there's a version of something that's gonna, go horribly wrong.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having those kinds of experts on staff is either priceless, or you have to pay a lot when
Or you
you
pay
no
when you
longer.
have the problem, and
Yeah,
you know, then that's fine, right? Money can solve those problems, but
sure.
it's a time problem now, right? Because if you
Yeah,
need to fix it today and
yeah,
it's a 3-month job because it's muddy code, you know, that's difficult. That's a bad place to be. So I think
yeah,
that's
yeah,
my bigger concern, you know, because sometimes dollars can't solve that right
yeah.
away.
thought of something before. We were talking about the scalability issue.
Yep.
A recent funny example. My son is really, speaking about sons, my son is really excited about the Game Awards that's going on right now. It's like the annual, it's a huge thing for gamers. So the Game Awards, and you're able to, like, I think you were able to, like, cast a vote or something like that on the games, right? So which game is going to be the game of the year and so forth. And obviously, of course, that site just went completely down.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Oh,
right?
kind of like the Comic-Con, like, sign up.
Boom, just explodes. It's I mean, talk about demanding user base.
Right.
How many millions of, I don't know, hundreds of millions, how many millions of game enthusiasts that all want to vote on this thing? And
so did somebody forget to load test or profile last year?
I have no idea. I think it just went down.
Yeah.
My son was showing me, like, his phone. It's like, I can't even get to the site. I was like, oh, shoot.
Well, at some point, more machines also don't solve problems, right? I've seen situations where we've had to bring in a really low level expert to solve, like, a system that's falling, where literally the one API that was blocking everything, it took 3 weeks to learn that code that nobody knew, clean it up, and show a pattern for how every other API should have been written, but at least solve the main blocker. And that kept the system up after, which is great. Again, sometimes you can solve pieces of problems by going and attacking the thing that's currently failing in place, but you might have to do some incisions, to let that work. And I think in that case, we did some routing to a new endpoint, like through YARP or something, like, just to make sure that, the one healthy thing, the clean work, was separate from all the muddy work. So there's ways to sort of do that. But that takes a lot of regression testing and knowing the code, and how do we make sure it's backward compatible? And if you don't already have those regression tests, now you have another problem. Like, how do you know it's safe to go live? And I will say this, and I'm super proud of this, but I hope I can say this forever, but you never know. But so far, I have never overseen a bad go live, right? Because we're super particular about the release, the production release management process, and how do we know this is safe, and do we have enough tests, and is there enough coverage, and what's the load test if there's a concern there, and how are we going to cut over, and what's our rollback plan? And we test that in 3 environments before we go live. And, like, there's a process for all of that. And again, success doesn't have to be the go live worked, by the way. I mean, obviously that's the goal, but success is also that if you discover the data in production is different from the shape below, and you have to learn something, that your rollback works. And if you've got that, then you're still reaching success.
You're still good. Yep.
There's just a whole lot of stuff, right? Like, from delivering and static analysis and security by design, to scaling thinking, to clean code, to just careful release planning. Like, there's so many things, and that's just like one line, right? That are so fun to work on, to help people get better at, right? Disaster recovery is another one. Like, that's just, like, so much fun.
It is. It's a lot there as well. And unfortunately, we are running out of time. But I do love your ending here to summarize, really, that rolling forward is the goal, but not being able to roll back, that's going to kill you, right?
Yeah.
So
and that can be the secondary goal.
That's a secondary goal.
That's the you're not fired goal.
It really is. Listen, it was wonderful talking to you. I think we covered a lot of ground in just 20 minutes, but we have to stop now. We have to end the show, unfortunately. Well, it was lovely talking to you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. And I hope you come back on the show at some point, and I'll talk to you again.
You got a deal.
Thanks, everyone, for watching The Cloud Show. Goodbye.